Ladies and gentlemen, so I'm very honored to remind all of you, please take your time to explore for more, because the next session, the panel discussions on the internet governance in cybersecurity, our esteemed moderator will bring everyone to go inside and in detail. We are honored to have the founder and CEO of the IO Foundation joining with us on the stage. The session will begin shortly. สำหรับท่านที่เพิ่งจะเดินทางมาถึงเวที Cybersec Asia แห่งนี้นะคะเรียนเชิญกันได้เลยค่ะอีกสักครู่เดี๋ยวเราจะเริ่มในช่วงของ Panel Discussion กันแล้วนะคะวันนี้จะเป็นประโยชน์ให้สำหรับทุกท่านอย่างยิ่งเลยนะคะ
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being today here in the room. I would like to introduce our two panelists, although it's okay if we start a little bit earlier, right? Okay, yes. Okay, so please. Okay. Slides? There you go. All right, so we would like to have today a conversation on what happens with standards. How do they position themselves in the cybersecurity space? What is the importance of standards and when they are adopted by cybersecurity practitioners? And we will try to also explore a little bit what are the organizations that issue those standards, as well as what's the governance of those organizations and how that can affect not only cybersecurity, but also the way those standards are developed. With me today, housekeeping. I'm not 100% certain about the code of conduct for the event, but I'm sure that there is one, so please follow it. Second thing, Chatham House rule. This is a bit of a variation of the Chatham House rule for those of you who might be acquainted with it. The evolution is essentially if you take pictures and you're going to be posting them and so forth, please ask for consent for the people involved. The agenda for today, we're going to do some introductions. We're going to have a conversation. We don't want to go too much scripted. We have a few questions on the pipeline, but we would want to make things flow as much as possible. I hope at some point we can go into a Q&A and that we get questions from the public. If necessary, we'll go back to having more conversations. We will allow the speakers to have some closing remarks, and hopefully you will grace us with some applause at the end of the session. So without much further ado, let me please introduce Dr. Park Jongbong, who is Director Project Development from the Asia Pacific Telecommunity. Thanks for joining us, APT. That's nice. And as well as Dr. Teerawat Issariyakul, sorry, I may not have pronounced that properly, who is VIP in Platform Technology and Solution Standards from the National Telecom Public Company Limited. Thank you. Thank you both for being with us. Well, that would be me. I'm founder and CEO of the IO Foundation. We're essentially a tech NGO. If you want to know more about us, just come and see us later. We also have a booth in S06, so I can just give you all the speech about what we do. Let's concentrate on this session today. So let's go for it. So I would like to start with you, Dr. Park. What is it, can you give us a bit of an introduction about the organization you work with? What is the kind of work that the APT does? How long you've been there, and so forth? That's an introduction.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jongbong. APT, let me say APT is getting popular because of the one song, Rosé and Bruno Mars, Party. So APT stands for Asia Pacific Telecommunity, based in Bangkok, Thailand. It's been 46 years since the establishment. In the global sense, APT is a regional telecommunication organization, basically looking after telecommunication. So in ITU global sense, ITU, I believe many people understand ITU, International Telecommunication Union. In the preparation of some of the activities of ITU, they require certain collection of the regional voices from the region. So ASEAN Pacific is one of the 6 regions in ITU context. So that's one of the APT function to serve our members to collect the regional voices to submit the international fora and consortia. And then aside from that, APT provides some certain capacity building program for ICT, and then APT also assists members for policy and regulation formulation. Aside from that, APT provides some capacity building and some projects to assist our members. In a nutshell, APT is a telecommunication organization, but nowadays telecommunication, ICT is merged together, so APT is also covering some portion of the cybersecurity. That's the brief introduction. Maybe during the course of discussion, I might provide some more details.
Sure, thank you for that. I want to check on the audience. Does everyone know about the ITU? Because that would be the starting point for understanding better what the APT does. Is everyone comfortable or knowledgeable about the International Telecommunication Union? Yep, okay. So moving to Dr. Teerawat, I would actually ask you the same question. Tell us a little bit more of your company and what you do in it.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Still good morning.
Yes.
So first of all, housekeeping. You're talking about taking pictures, so I'll give my consent if you want to. So we have a PDA, the privacy law in Thailand. The consent is given. Okay. So come back to National Telecom, or we known as NT in Thailand. We are one of the largest telco company in Thailand. Okay. We were a part of the government for a long time. We were known as TOT and CAT, Cat Telecom, and a couple of years ago we merged together. So the service we provided are telco services, telephones, internet, digital technology, data center, cybersecurity, mobile, all kinds of telecommunication services. And we have a couple of guys in the back there too. For myself, I've been doing the cybersecurity for, first of all, I've been with NT for about 20 years. I've been doing cybersecurity for, I think, more than 10 years. Although I do a lot of cybersecurities, the other part that I do is solution design, digital solutions. So I talk a lot about user experience, understanding of the user, the pain point of the user. And I've been involving a lot with the government and the people that the government serve. Maybe that's a good introduction for now. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you. So in your experience, Dr. Park.
Call me Jongbong.
Okay, Jongbong. What has been the work that APT has been doing as of late in cybersecurity? Has there been any standardization process going on, or any processes related to the ITU that you've been working on?
Thank you, John. Basically, APT, our structure, we need to follow our strategy plan. Our strategy plan covers 3 years timeline. And then our strategy plan includes the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, and there are the spectrum of cybersecurity is really wide. And then one of the topics we are looking after is assisting our members in terms of developing national legislation, policy, and strategies. That's number one. Number two is increased awareness of the cybersecurity. APT provides some certain capacity building program in collaboration with NT and other stakeholders. And then also we provide certain technical guideline and recommendation. We have a standardization program, which stands for ASTAP's APT standardization program. looking after cybersecurity domain. So cybersecurity, under the expert group on cybersecurity, there are certain number of activities. Now they are looking after IoT security these days for the management level. So they are drafting the guideline how manager needs to monitor the progress of the IoT security. And then aside from that, those expert group has developed a number of guidelines in terms of the cybersecurity. And then also APT provides certain policy formulation through our expert mission. So certain cases like Micronesia, we assess the situation of the cybersecurity readiness together with our expert, and then we provide certain assessment tool, and then we also provide a roadmap how to develop national legislation and national readiness for cybersecurity. And then also we invite members. We have 38 member administration, and then also we have 140 something about industry members, asking members to share their best practices through our meeting and events. And those are our activities these days.
So let's imagine that someone from the public or companies would like to participate in this kind of processes. What would be the way for them to do so?
There are a number of ways. APT is intergovernmental organization, as you understand. So we require certain membership. So for instance, Thailand, NT is our member, affiliate member. But some of you wish to attend APT events, you need to register through your administration, like ministry or MBTC. So you need to contact them to be registered under the national delegation. Or if we are the member like NT, they are freely to register to APT events. And for information, our membership is really cheap. 1,000 US dollars per year, and then we also accept half unit as well.
Full disclosure, I'm not getting any commission out of it, so this was just a very honest question as to how you could actually get involved. In your experience, since you've been doing cybersecurity and obviously as well you've been doing standardization, what caught your attention to want to be part of the standardization processes?
Usually when we talk about cybersecurity or IT process, we talk about three things. We talk about people, process, and technologies. Okay. But the way that when we start the conversation, usually we start with backward. We start from technologies. We talk about antivirus, malware, ransomware, firewall, those kind of things. But I like to believe that we should starting from people and process first. So here's the thing. When we talk about process, it's kind of bland and boring and not exciting, not sexy, not like technology, not like firewall and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of important and it's very close to us. I like to, when I talk about the standardization, I like to draw an example like from a burger, McDonald's, Burger King place, where if you go to this place and you can go here or you can go to other countries, they will have similar tastes. So you can say that they have a standard, right? And if they can do the standardization, why can't we? We can do the standardization for security. So here's what they do. If you want to work on Burger King and you want to make burger, you go there. You ask them that I want to work there. They're going to ask you, do you have experience in cooking? And you say, no, I don't. Fine, you start working tomorrow. They don't want you to have experience. They're going to tell you that when the customer comes and they order a burger, you take a patty, you put it on the grill, times 2 minutes, you flip it, you times 2 minutes, you put it in the bun, give it to the customer. So every single burger would taste the same. You can try this. As a customer, you can try to go there and saying that, well, I like my burger to be a bit medium rare. They're gonna look at you with confusion, right? We don't have medium rare, we have only one kind of burger. So if this practice can be done all over the world, we can, you can think that we can do similar practice all over the world as well. So, but the problem is that we don't see the value. Burger King see the value because they can scale. We as a developer, we see the standards as something kind of boring idea. We don't want to follow it. We just want to develop something and create something and sell it. But that's not scale. That's gonna create a problem later on. So in the several years that I've been doing in the early in my career in cybersecurity, I focus a lot on the technical part. But lately, I give a lot of importance to the process, to the standard. I always ask, like, if you do this, how would you scale? How would you monitor that it works? And when it scales, right? So I think it's kind of important, and if it's something you can take away, maybe look again at the standardization. If you want something to be the same all over your enterprise, maybe you should look at the standardization as well.
Thank you, John. Actually, Teerawat is one of the long-lasting experts in the work of APT. Here, the APT provides some certain initial funding to NT to develop some standards, the procedure, how to communicate the emergency vehicle to the hospital. So they have a pilot project at the first year, and then it turns out quite successful. And then he brought this issue to our standardization process to make it standards to cover all the Thai nation standards. So he has quite experience in those kind of things. He tried to build up certain momentum, and then he wished to scale up to nationwide as a standards. It is quite successful stories in APT.
So the immediate question that comes to my mind is, when I look at the numbers of, in general, Southeast Asia engineers, in particular in Thailand, since we're here, the numbers are quite dismal of engineers who participate in these processes. So, of course, there's dozens of SDOs out there. SDO stands for Standard Developing Organization, and it will be an organization that has a different degree of legitimacy depending on where it comes from or what's the story of the organization, that will issue either protocols or policy that is going to be eventually adopted by the market, by the suppliers. And of course, you can imagine there's two things that happen there. Once, if I'm going to be inheriting a standard that has been developed by third parties, I may be inheriting problems that they may not have considered. And I may not have too much of a margin of maneuver in there. And second, those organizations also become very obvious choke points. And so if anyone wants to manipulate the market, that's the best place that they could go to try to manipulate how those standards are done. And so the standards organization ecosystem, it's somehow floating. We were discussing before that it's this thing that people don't necessarily have in their mind, that they receive it. They're not necessarily interested in the actual in the act of creation. So the question would be, what do you think would be necessary to entice more Thai engineers to get interested in standardization processes? Specifically, you have a doctorate on the matter. So I was wondering, what was your personal motivation? Was there something that took you into, I really want to make sure that things are, protected by design, or I want to make sure that certain things don't go astray? What was your personal experience, either one of you? And what do you think would be an approach for Thai engineers?
So I would think that, so when we talk about standard, like you say, this is a very good way to manipulate the market. if you can get your product to comply with the standard and your product only, it's very easy to sell your product, right? But the question is actually, how do you know this standard is a good standard, right? So right now we are at the let's say the digital age where everybody is, you can give the like to everyone, you can vote to everyone, but personally I don't think that everything should be voted. Standard is one of the example that it should not be voted by everybody. So the person who should give opinion to the standard, that person has to be knowledgeable about the standard as well. So if you want to be a part of the cybersecurity standardization, you have to be knowledgeable about it. Okay, and how do we do that? So the question is, how do we get people to participate? I think I'll come back to the first component, people process technology. We should come back to the people part. Now, I think we should start from the college, right? So if you think about that, maybe before that, but college is one of the first starting point where people learn to develop something, learn how to program something, right? And if the teacher doesn't teach how to program or develop something securely, so after this guy graduates, he maybe spun up a startup companies, created products, and maybe not secure because that's what he learned from the college, right? And then he's become a part of the standardization process. Then if that standards come out because we have enough people who doesn't know much about security and try to create the standardization, then we're gonna have a not very good standard. So my personal feeling is that we should start, maybe it takes time, but it's not that long. If you start from the college, in the next 4 years, you're gonna start cranking out people with knowledge about security, or at least awareness about cybersecurity. And then we can have that people as a starting point to participate in the standardization process.
But anything, Jongbong?
Yes, John, the question is why, in Thai context, a small number of engineers are involving in standardization. I have encountered a similar question in our works. APT provides certain places for our members to discuss about standards, but we are suffering from a lack of contribution and commitment, especially from our reason. I try to think about the reason why, and there are a number of reasons. Number one, a lack of resources. Standardization process requires long-lasting commitment, lots of human resources, lots of time consuming. So our reason, except some of the country, they don't have enough resources to raise their staff to involve in standardization. So basically, our reason is kind of a taker, not the leader. So they believe those standards could come from outside of region, like the USA and Europe and some other countries. So they, in order to save the money, in order to be effective and efficient, they try to be receiver of the standards. So they don't heavily invest their resources to the standards. That's the fundamental reason. Thai, for example, they are really good at certain technology and services, but still, when it comes to standardization activities, we don't see much experts except Teerawat and some other colleagues involving in the standardization process. That's the fundamental reason, I believe. And then that's the point the government needs to play a crucial role. Being a Korean, Korea is one of the countries who faced lots of challenges like the Korean War and disruption of all the infrastructure. But the Korean government believed their technology and services and standards is one of the key elements to leapfrog as a a front runner. They heavily invested their resources to the technology and standards, so they established a standardization organization to coordinate all of these activities. So they put lots of resources to the standardization organization. So I keep on saying the same thing to our members. They need to put some resources to standardization activities through the government funding or through some match funding with industry. That would be one of the way out.
You actually make a very good point in terms of how much South Korea does contribute to, specifically in the ITU habitat. Do you think that that's a direct impact about the government's commitment towards working on standards, and that has basically trickled down into academia? Because most of the people that I know from in ITU delegation for South Korea, they are from the academic environment. Do you think it is a consequence of a commitment from the government pushing for money and funding this kind of activities?
That's the good question. Actually, that's the question always posed by the parliament to the government. What are the ROI? But the standard itself is a fundamental things. We are now communicating through English, right? English is one of the standards. It's basic commodity in our life. So standards, we need to understand certain flexibility and a certain level of understanding. Standards require big long-term investment. So the parliament, we try to persuade them. This is the fundamental the investment for long-term development. So it's very difficult to justify the investment, but there are certain fund in government, in Korean government, out of, I cannot remember these days, I left a long time back, but there are around 10% of the total R&D fund should go to the standardization activity. So it goes to the research institution, a standardization organization, as you mentioned, SDO, and then the fund goes to academia as well. So, John, you have met many Korean professors attending the ITU study group through that fund. So it's very difficult to justify, but still the government believes standardization activities is fundamental for their economic development.
I actually have a way to justify it. Those standards are going to be discussed in a room, virtual, whatever. If you're not there, someone else is going to be. And so I do get that it's always not straightforward to understand what an expense could be to invest in standards, but if you don't, someone else is doing it. And so the question is whether you're going to be always inheriting standards and technology that is developed by third parties, or you're going to be there trying to do your best to improve those standards. And so, I actually appreciate the fact that South Korea is there, because otherwise there's very few actors that are very, very active in ITU processes. So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I just want to maybe stress out the point that Jongbong was saying about the long process, because I've been participating in this standardization process, and it's actually formal and takes quite a long time. Now, and as you say, like maybe a lot of people in our region is more like the passive participant. We are not very active. And if you go to the standardization process, usually you're going to see like a few countries like talking and dominating the whole meeting. And we don't have our voice. Now, if you think about the reason, why don't we have our voice? Why don't we say something? When in fact we have one vote, right? Even if our country is very small, we have one vote. I was thinking that maybe it's because of the long process, and there's an investment that the country has to do, and a lot of country doesn't do long-term investment. We prefer the short term. So the way that I see is that sometimes when the people, I've been to several standardization conference venues, and what I see is that I see the person from one country rotating, like this year this guy come, the next year the other guys comes, and well, it means that the next year the other guys come, that guy has to start over and doesn't have a deep knowledge about what they're doing, the process about getting this, what he wants to do into the venue, okay? Maybe it's the way that people operate in the government, that they want people to, like the government officer, to know all the areas of the government, right? But standardization needs long term. So if you want to send someone there, that particular person or group has to go there, or at least the group. You cannot change it because you have to start over. Now, the other problem that people in this region have is maybe the lack of funding. Most of the funding goes to the investment project, something that you can see it right away in 1 year, 2 years. But standardization takes at least 5 years. So we don't have the incentive in terms of money, promotion, that if you can push this to the standardization, you can have, the return in some kind of remuneration. Like in the Western world, you can have professor from university writing the paper, proposing for the standard. The government is actively proposing or pushing for something. So I think these are the things that maybe if we can, we should try to change this part. Now the other part, the last one that I want to mention from your perspective is that the person who participate in the standardization process, why can't we have anyone participating? One of the things is that some standardization belongs to all the countries. So we need someone who can be responsible for that country, for the country, can be representative for the countries. Like Jongbong was saying, ABT, if you want to be the full member of ABT, you have to be the government. The company can be another one, but has to be endorsed by the countries. You cannot be just anyone and propose something and then go away. You have to be anyone endorsed by the government. Then if anything that you propose, it means that countries endorsed this comment. So I think maybe it's not that easy for everyone to get into the standardization, but there's a way that you have to work through the countries.
All right, thank you. Yes, Jongbong.
Can I add one more thing?
By all means.
Yes. Teerawat is talking about some standardization process. As you understand, maybe there are de jure and de facto standards. I'm not sure whether they are familiar with. De jure means formal standardization processes, the organization, like ITU and APT. We provide certain room for developing country to speak and to contribute. But de facto standards like IETF and others is really dominant by the leading technology and services. So what I wish to say is there are certain room for our colleagues in the region to contribute and play together. So I think if you have something to suggest and any idea, come to APT and ITU to work together.
Yeah, so depending, as Jongbong was mentioning, there's dozens of SDOs out there, and each of one of them take care of a different aspect of the technology stack. And so if you want to get involved into conversations that have to do with the ITU, then you have to go in the region through APT and follow all the processes and respect, let's say, the chain of command of the fact that the member states are the ones who are on top of the decision. But if you are a company, for instance, who's developing or interested in supporting, say, TCP/IP stack protocol development, you can definitely participate in IETF, in the Internet Engineering Task Force. And there's no quotas, there's no membership, it's just a matter of doing the work and participating, and they are quite receptive. For those who may be interested on unique identifiers or domain names, for instance, you can always recourse to ICANN, which also doesn't have a membership per se, and it has a structure. And by the way, to your point about the rotation, ICANN has this thing called the GAC, the Government Advisory Council, where all the governments of the world have a representation in ICANN. Specifically, most of the time just for domain names, but for other things, because ICANN is very well known for domain names, but in reality, they handle unique identifiers at large. I think last time I checked was 1,300 plus unique identifiers. And the main problem that they were facing was precisely that. So people were career civil servants in specific jurisdictions, specific countries, and they would be stationed from one department to another that would be rotating, and basically the GAG would lose all the knowledge and all the know-how that they had in 2 years, basically. So now they have implemented very specific training courses for the GAG continuously, to the point where I think it was the last community meeting, they had 10 sessions of training. Each of one of them is 1 hour, so you can imagine. And so people were just basically going there to get training and understand how to participate in ICANN processes, which, by the way, for those who may not have been participating in ICANN processes, there is a very well-established rule that you cannot understand how to work things in ICANN until you've been there for 3 years. Because among other things, they love their acronyms. And sometimes you think that they speak ICANNese more than really English. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody. This is doable. You can definitely participate. All I'm saying is that all of these organizations come with their own set of challenges. And it's also one of the reasons why I believe engineers don't necessarily feel that they're going to be very enticed to participate, and we need to figure out ways to lower down that barrier of entry. Reach this point, 8 minutes mark, I would like to see if the audience has any questions, if they want to correct anything we have said. I would ask people to not be shy, because that's also, I'll have a specific slide here, I think, to entice people. Yes. I literally believe that the only useless question is the one that you don't ask. So please, anyone? Just go ahead. I think they're going to be able to give you the microphone.
Yeah, thank you very much for presenting what Thailand is doing in this field. I'm working for a company in England. I'm not very familiar with what you are doing here, but I'm extremely curious. I'm seeing a lot of focus on standardization and regulation, and this is not really a success story in my experience in Europe, in UK, in Germany, in Luxembourg, because you killed all the innovation with that, being too tough and not flexible enough. And I will highly recommend you to think about more in a region of guidance rather than standards. Because the technology is moving so fast, by the time you have anything, it will be obsolete. And instead of creating the future, you are creating more of the past. And also you are helping organizations that are not moving fast enough, or on products that are not innovative enough to still sell because they are compliant. We are in situations in the UK where we have 2 sets of products, 2 sets of tools, one for regulation and one to test what the new world is. But I think that's something you need to consider, because it's taking too long. I'm assuming that you never consider AI challenges when you started a year ago. And last year you were thinking, my God, we haven't considered ML. It's just, this will never be something to work. But if you are focusing in security domains and create standards, those will be there for a very long time. That's my opinion.
Anyone wants to react to that?
Thank you, gentlemen from UK. Yes, it's absolutely correct. The standards involving in those cybersecurity domain evolving every day. So when it comes to standards, it's very difficult to catch up. So standards process is really long. And then once we develop the standards must be obsolete in a couple of days. So what he mentioned, we also see the point. So we try to make some guideline in terms of interpreting this basic fundamental of standards in cybersecurity. As I mentioned before, we are now working on guideline for IoT security for management. So we try to provide certain recommendation to government officials or managers of the industry to think about what are the basic fundamentals of cybersecurity. So in our reason, we are a little bit taker instead of a leader. So given this situation, we need to advise them how to interpret international standards in their domestic circumstances. I think his recommendation is really awesome. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So let me maybe give some comment on this as well. I thank you for your comment, and that's very valid. Like Jongbong was saying, standardization, by the time it came out, it's already obsolete, right? So in my experience, you were talking about the ambulance standardization. If you remember, I was trying to propose some as a standardization, and then we have to change into the guideline. The reason is not because of the timeline, but because of the differences among the countries. So our intention at the beginning is that this project is about digitize the EMS system. How do you manage the ambulance in the digital world? So it works in Thailand. In other countries, they don't have this kind of system. So if they want to start something, we want to give them something so that they can start working right away. But standardization is too strong. So we changed that into guideline. Guideline meaning that you can, if you don't know anything, you adopt this one, and it works in a certain way, but it leaves some rooms so that maybe you can change this, you can change that. In our company, we do have the governance system as well. We have policy, which is a very general one. In security, we say we have to have the CAA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, right? That's a very, very general policy. And then we look at how do we get that? Something we need to make it standardization. The standard, that everybody has to do this, okay? Something we have to make it the guideline, because some of the setting of the equipment, maybe it's not possible to do this and that. So we give the guideline to the person who operate that particular hardware, and they'll follow the guideline. But if there is the reason that you cannot do this point, then you can make exception. But you need to give some kind of justification for that. So we have policy, we have standard, we have guideline, and the last one is that we have procedures, something that we have to do step by step by step. Now, we were talking about standard and saying that, well, how do we know that this standard is a good standard? So it's not just good doesn't just mean that in security, doesn't just mean secure. Because if you want to be secure, then the best way is do nothing. That's the most secure way to do something. But the standard has the level of you need to think about the level of flexibility, because it's, like you say, it's going to inhibit the innovation, right? So good in the sense of security is that you have to have some kind of room so that the people can work within these standards as well. And that's not easy for the person who start working on security.
I would also add on that it also depends on what is the SDO and their methodology. So for instance, in the case of the IETF, despite the fact that they may take up to 5 years. There's another say over there. The IETF issues what's called request for comments. That's the name of the standards. They refuse to call them standards, by the way. And it takes you sometimes up to 5 years to be able to publish one finally. And it goes around that it's, it will take you less time for you to get your PhD than to publish your RFC. But the good thing, for instance, of their approach is that they issue recommendations, and it's the market that decides whether that particular RFC will be a success or not. And those RFCs that make it to the level of standards are basically because the adoption has been so important, so relevant, that it just cannot be denied. But they themselves, they refuse to go around saying that they create standards. I do agree with you that it's a absolute problem, and there's been, in fact, research done in terms of what is the future of AI, for instance, being able to generate solutions on the fly. And I was commenting with the speakers before that there's this paper that was presented by Ericsson of someone who was able to train an LLM to behave like an Apache web server with no prior code on the LLM, being a blank LLM, let's say. And so that opens a lot of very interesting questions in terms of what's going to be in terms of the this dichotomy between traditional systems and all the research and all the advancements and all the good stuff that we can put together moving forward. We still have 4 minutes. I think I'm going to move into the final conclusions. So we got a couple of minutes each, or minute and a half. Jongbong, please.
Thank you, Jen. We are talking about standards involving in cybersecurity. My concluding remarks would be, I wish to ask you to come to the process, or standardization process. We expect, let me say, like a 5G or 6G, for instance. One of the technological advanced country lead the discussion, but at the same time, they need to listen what are the requirements of other nations, other stakeholders, in terms of backward compatibility and other things. The cybersecurity is also the same. When it comes to develop the leading edge, cutting edge technologies, they need to do something for frontiers and innovation, but at the same time, they need to listen what are the requirements from other stakeholders. So please be active, proactive, involving in the standardization process. As you mentioned, there is nothing wrong in involving in the standardization process. So please be proactive to come to any standardization process, bring your idea, and then there are a bunch of people can help you out to lead through all the discussion. So I think that's my message to the participants.
Thank you.
If I would leave just one thought for the audience, I think, first of all, when you guys see the title of this talk is about cybersecurity, it's about the futures. Some of you might expect something exciting for the future, but there's something about standardization that is valuable as well. Okay, there's a saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you don't need to go in group. And in order for you guys to work in group, you need the rules so that you can work together. These rules is actually standardization. Now, how do we make this standardization known to everyone? I would go back to one thing that we might have to do is the education. Education from the college or even before that, so that people knows what is the standardization. Why do we need them? It's not boring, but it's make us sustainable. We can go far with that. I was talking to one of the software development companies where right now they're using the from waterfall model, which is very slow and step-by-step, more like standardization, to agile, where everybody tries to do the best. But there's still the rules. Those rules are standard. So what they do at the end, they understand that it's important to develop something, but they have a rule saying that if you develop something, you need to make sure that it's scalable. It is you are able to monitor what's wrong with it, and you are able to connect with other components that the companies develop. Okay, this is a standard. If you cannot do this, you don't develop this. So I think this standardization, if you have this one, it would be slow at first to develop these, but it would make you go far. After that, if you want to develop something, you just pull this piece, put it together, and you get the final product. So again, my comment is that maybe we have to go back to the beginning where we have to start to take times, be patient, and educate our people before, and after some time, when those people understand a lot more about the standardization, we're gonna have a good technology, even for AI, for the future. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. I will also add on that on top of that, for those who may not be either capacitated or having the resources to participate actively on standards development, to the very least, keep an eye on it. Have a look at what's been developed, what you're going to be coming on your table eventually. Be aware about what you're probably going to have to deal in the coming months, because that's just going to be presented to you, and you will probably not have much of an escape. Finally, I wanted to thank you, our two speakers. Thank you so much for joining the session and for giving you your insights. I also wanted to thank the organization for allowing us to have the panel. And I also wanted to thank a number of other organizations that have been supporting this panel from happening. Unfortunately, for a number of logistics, they haven't been able to. So on top of my head, APNIC, ISOC, who has Article 19, and so many others that have been attempting to try to bring more expertise as well into the panel, and just circumstances didn't allow it. And I wanted to recognize all of that effort, .Asia as well, who tried last minute to be here. Thank you so much for the both of you. Thank you everyone for being in the room. Please be free to approach the speakers later. And for those of you who might be interested, this is going to be my shameless plug. Those who might be interested on the topic, I'll be giving a much more extensive talk tomorrow on standardization and cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Was insightful session. Thank you so much, Sean A. Queralt, founder and CEO of DIO Foundations. I believe that standards in cybersecurity is like a heart of our community as well. So please take your opportunity to be discussed with all the experts. Feel free to exchange your experience and knowledge together. Thank you so much, our panelists, and thank you, Sean, once again for your excellent moderation by this talk. Everyone, before we have a lunch break, carry around me once again to ask for your kind cooperation in completing our conference surveys. For the future editions of the Cybersec Asia, you may have any suggestions for us as the organizers to improve our topics and our next editions as well. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to have, so it makes our show event better and better. Really appreciate your time and suggestions. Thank you so much for joining with us for this morning's session. So please recharge yourself and get ready for the afternoon session. And here at Cybersec Asia State, we'll proceed the afternoon session at 1 p.m. So please be right back and stay with us until the end of the day. Thank you so much for your time. See you in the afternoon session.